You made me trust you at my mother's breasts. On you was I cast from my birth, and from my mother's womb you have been my God. Be not far from me, for trouble is near, and there is none to help. Many bulls encompass me. Strong bulls of Bashan surround me. They open wide their mouths at me, like a ravening and roaring lion. I am poured out like water, and all my bones are out of joint. My heart is like wax, it is melted within my breast. My strength is dried up like a potsherd, and my tongue sticks to my jaws. You lay me in the dust of death. For dogs encompass me, a company of evildoers encircles me. They have pierced my hands and feet. I can count all my bones. They stare and gloat over me. They divide my garments among them, and for my clothing they cast lots. But you, O Lord, do not be far off. O you, my help, come quickly to my aid. I will tell of your name to my brothers. In the midst of the congregation, I will praise you. All the ends of the earth shall remember and turn to the Lord, and all the families of all the nations shall worship before you. For kingship belongs to the Lord, and he rules over the nations. Posterity shall serve him. It shall be told of the Lord to the coming generation. They shall come and proclaim his righteousness to a people yet unborn, that he has done it. I want to welcome you to tonight's Tenebrae service. If you're not familiar with this particular service, it's a service of shadows, 8 candles, which walk through the events of Jesus' crucifixion and death. The shadows, both inside and outside, will progressively lengthen as the flames are extinguished, and we will sit with and ponder the darkness which Christ endured. Some, perhaps many of us, don't give ourselves permission to lament before God. In our culture and even in our churches, we're given precious little opportunity to grieve together, and we are poorer for it. When we read a psalm like Psalm 22, in our tradition, perhaps we immediately sprint to the cross, recognizing that this text is ultimately about Jesus. It is. In Matthew's gospel alone, it's cited 4 times, describing the events of Good Friday. But let's not forget the psalmist is describing his experience too. Scripture not only models and permits us to engage in the kind of brutally honest dialogue that we see here with God, it actually commends it as an act of faith. Faith that he is there, that he hears us, even when it seems as though he's silent. Faith that in amidst our uncertainty, he is ultimately writing a story with our lives. Faith that sees faith as not a blind leap into the unknown, but a purposeful leap into the arms of a loving Father. You've probably felt forsaken at some point in your life, that God is far from you, that you're crying out day and night, and it seems like you're knocking on a closed door. The truth is, we've all felt that way at times. It feels like our heart is melting, like our strength is dried up. And the faithful thing to do is not to deny that it's happening, but to see in Psalms exactly like this, that we are not alone on those dark nights. Jesus knows, and he's with us, because he walked this dark road all the way to the end. And he walked it so that we would never have to experience being truly forsaken. Tonight, as we make space to acknowledge and ponder the depth of the darkness, it is a good thing for our souls not to rush to the end of this story. But as we read and sing about this story, this road that Jesus walked, remember, it was a purposeful road that he orchestrated, that he set his face to, propelled by love with a purpose to redeem for himself a people, to forever cover over all their sins, that by his death they would have life eternal with him. Please pray with me. Father of love, whether this story is familiar to us or brand new, open our hearts to receive it. Show us ourselves in this story, in the disciples' fear and concern of others' opinions, in the payment our rebellion against you has earned, but which we have not received. Open our eyes to see you, the King, who humbled himself all the way to death on a cross. And from our hearts with tears may we confess the wonders of redeeming love and our unworthiness. Amen.
Judas Iscariot, who was one of the 12, went to the chief priests in order to betray him to them. And when they heard it, they were glad and promised to give him money. And he sought an opportunity to betray him. And on the first day of unleavened bread, when they sacrificed the Passover lamb, his disciples said to him, "Where will you have us go and prepare for you to eat the Passover?" And he sent 2 of his disciples and said to them, "Go into the city, and a man carrying a jar of water will meet you. Follow him, and wherever he enters, say to the master of the house, 'The teacher says, where is my guest room, where I may eat the Passover with my disciples?' And he will show you a large upper room, furnished and ready. There prepare for us." And the disciples set out and went to the city and found it just as he had told them, and they prepared the Passover. And when it was evening, he came with the 12. And as they were reclining at table and eating, Jesus said, "Truly I say to you, one of you will betray me, one who is eating with me." They began to be sorrowful and say to him one after another, "Is it I?" He said to them, "It is one of the 12, one who is dipping bread into the dish with me. For the Son of Man goes as it is written of him, but woe to that man by whom the Son of Man is betrayed. It would have been better for that man if he had not been born." Man of sorrows, what a name for the Son
Then Jesus went with them to a place called Gethsemane, and he said to his disciples, "Sit here while I go over there and pray." And taking with him Peter and the 2 sons of Zebedee, he began to be sorrowful and troubled. Then he said to them, "My soul is very sorrowful, even to death. Remain here and watch with me." And going a little farther, he fell on his face and prayed, saying, "My Father, if it be possible, let this cup pass from me. Nevertheless, not as I will, but as you will." And he came to the disciples and found them sleeping. And he said to Peter, "So could you not watch with me 1 hour? Watch and pray that you may not enter into temptation. The spirit indeed is willing, but the flesh is weak." Again, for the 2nd time, he went away and prayed, "My Father, if this cannot pass unless I drink it, your will be done." And again, he came and found them sleeping, for their eyes were heavy. So leaving them again, he went away and prayed for the 3rd time, saying the same words again. Holy Jesus, how hast thou offended that men to judge thee hath in hate pretended, by foes derided, by thine own rejected, O most afflicted. Who was the guilty who brought this upon thee? Alas, my treason, Jesus hath undone thee. 'Twas my Lord Jesus, it was denied thee. I crucified thee. Lo, the good shepherd for the sheep is offered. The slave hath sinned, and the Son hath suffered for man's atonement, while he nothing
And immediately, while he was still speaking, Judas came, one of the 12, and with him a crowd with swords and clubs from the chief priests and the scribes and the elders. Now the betrayer had given them a sign, saying, "The one I will kiss is the man. Seize him and lead him away under guard." And when he came, he went up to him at once and said, "Rabbi," and he kissed him. And they laid hands on him and seized him. But one of those who stood by drew his sword and struck the servant of the high priest and cut off his ear. And Jesus said to them, "Have you come out as against a robber with swords and clubs to capture me? Day after day I was with you in the temple teaching, and you did not seize me, but let the scriptures be fulfilled." How shallow former shadows seem beside this great reverse, as darkness swallows up the light of all the universe. Creation shivers at the shock, and the temple rends its veil. A pallid stillness stifles time, and nature's motions fail. This is no midday fantasy, no flight of fevered brain. With vengeance awful, grim, and real, chaos is come again. The hands that formed us from the soil are nailed upon the cross. The word that gave us life and breath expires in utter loss. Yet deep within this darkness lives a love so fierce and free that arcs all voids and, risk supreme, embraces agony. Its perfect testament is etched in iron, blood, and wood. With awe we glimpse its true import and dare to call it good.
The shadow of desertion. And they all left him and fled. And as Peter was below in the courtyard, one of the servant girls of the high priest came, and seeing Peter warming himself, she looked at him and said, "You also were with the Nazarene, Jesus." But he denied it, saying, "I neither know nor understand what you mean." And he went out into the gateway, and the rooster crowed. And the servant girls saw him and began again to say to the bystanders, "This man is one of them." But again he denied it. And after a little while, the bystanders again said to Peter, "Certainly you are one of them, for you are a Galilean." But he began to invoke a curse on himself and to swear, "I do not know this man of whom you speak." And immediately the rooster crowed a second time. And Peter remembered how Jesus had said to him, "Before the rooster crows twice, you will deny me 3 times." And he broke down and wept. Beneath the cross of Jesus, I fain would take my stand. The shadow of a mighty rock within a weary land. A home within the wilderness, rest upon the way, from the burning of the noontide heat and the burden of the day. Upon the cross of Jesus, mine eyes can see. The very dying form of one who suffered there for me. And from my stricken heart with tears to wonders I confess the wonders of redeeming love and my unworthiness. I take across thy shadow for my abiding place. I ask no other sunshine than the sunshine of his face. Content to let the world go by, to know no gain nor loss. My sinful self, my only shame, my glory, all the cross.
And as soon as it was morning, the chief priests held a consultation with the elders and scribes and the whole council. And they bound Jesus and led him away and delivered him over to Pilate. And Pilate asked him, "Are you the king of the Jews?" And he answered him, "You have said so." And the chief priests accused him of many things. And Pilate again asked him, "Have you no answer to make? See how many charges they bring against you." But Jesus made no further answer, so that Pilate was amazed. Now at the feast, he used to release for them one prisoner for whom they asked. And among the rebels in prison who had committed murder in the insurrection, there was a man called Barabbas. And the crowd came up and began to ask Pilate to do as he usually did for them. And he answered them, saying, "Do you want me to release for you the king of the Jews?" For he perceived that it was out of envy that the chief priests had delivered him up. But the chief priests stirred up the crowd to have him release for them Barabbas instead. And Pilate again said to them, "Then what shall I do with the man you call the king of the Jews?" And they cried out again, "Crucify him!" And Pilate said to them, "Why? What evil has he done?" But they shouted all the more, "Crucify him!" So Pilate, wishing to satisfy the crowd, released for them Barabbas, and having scourged Jesus, he delivered him to be crucified. And the soldiers led him away inside the palace, that is, the governor's headquarters, and they called together the whole battalion. And they clothed him in a purple cloak, and twisting together a crown of thorns, they put it on him. And they began to salute him, "Hail, King of the Jews!" And they were striking his head with a reed and spitting on him and kneeling down in homage to him. And when they had mocked him, they stripped him of the purple cloak and put his own clothes on him. And they led him out to crucify him. Mary Speaks, a poem by Madeleine L'Engle. O you who bear the pain of the whole earth, I bore you. O you whose tears gave human tears their worth, I laughed with you. You who, when your hem is touched, give power. I nourished you. Who turned the day to night in this dark hour, light comes from you. O you who hold the world in your embrace, I carried you. Whose arms encircled the world with your grace, I once held you. O you who laughed and ate and walked the shore, I played with you. And I, who with all others you died for, now I hold you. May I be faithful to this final test. In this last hour, I hold my child, my son, his body close and folded to my breast, the holder held, the bearer born. Mourning to joy, darkness to morn. Open my arms, your work is done.
Two others who were criminals were led away to be put to death with him. And when they came to the place that is called the Skull, there they crucified him and the criminals, one on his right and one on his left. And Jesus said, "Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do." And they cast lots to divide his garments. And the people stood by watching. But the rulers scoffed at him, saying, "He saved others. Let him save himself if he is the Christ of God, his chosen one." The soldiers also mocked him, coming up and offering him sour wine, and saying, "If you are the King of the Jews, save yourself." There was also an inscription over him, "This is the King of the Jews." One of the criminals who were hanged railed at him, saying, "Are you not the Christ? Save yourself and us." But the other rebuked him, saying, "Do you not fear God, since you are under the same sentence of condemnation? And we indeed justly, for we are receiving the due reward of our deeds. But this man has done nothing wrong." And he said, "Jesus, remember me when you come into your kingdom." And he said to him, "Truly I say to you, today you will be with me in paradise." Standing by the cross of Jesus were his mother and his mother's sister, Mary the wife of Clopas, and Mary Magdalene. When Jesus saw his mother and the disciple whom he loved standing nearby, he said to his mother, "Woman, behold your son." Then he said to the disciple, "Behold your mother." And from that hour, the disciple took her to his own home.
Sacred head now wounded, with grief and shame weighed down, now scornfully surrounded, with thorns thine only crown. O sacred head, what glory!
Now from the 6th hour there was darkness over all the land until the 9th hour. And about the 9th hour Jesus cried out with a loud voice, saying, Eli, Eli, lama sabachthani, that is, my God, why have you forsaken me? And some of the bystanders, hearing it, said, this man is calling Elijah. And one of them at once ran and took a sponge, filled it with sour wine, and put it on a reed and gave it to him to drink. But the others said, wait, let us see whether Elijah will come to save him. And Jesus cried out again with a loud voice and yielded up his spirit. And behold, the curtain of the temple was torn in two from top to bottom, and the earth shook, and the rocks were split. The tombs also were opened, and many bodies of the saints who had fallen asleep were raised. And coming out of the tombs after his resurrection, they went into the holy city and appeared to many. When the centurion and those who were with him, keeping watch over Jesus, saw the earthquake and what took place, they were filled with awe and said, truly, this was the Son of God.
After these things, Joseph of Arimathea, who was a disciple of Jesus, but secretly for fear of the Jews, asked Pilate that he might take away the body of Jesus, and Pilate gave him permission. So he came and took away his body. Nicodemus also, who earlier had come to Jesus by night, came bringing a mixture of myrrh and aloes, about 75 pounds in weight. So they took the body of Jesus and bound it in linen cloths with the spices, as is the burial custom of the Jews. Now in the place where he was crucified, there was a garden, and in the garden a new tomb in which no one had yet been laid. So because of the Jewish day of preparation, since the tomb was close at hand, they laid Jesus there.